Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here. Another edition of Off the Top Rope. Wanted to talk about NXT. So the main event of this show showcases the best women's division, and just an added bonus, we get to be blessed with Io Sky's greatness, just at the Performance Center, just for the hell of it. Like, why not? So that was freaking great. I mean, you get her in the ring with Jordan Grace, Julia, and Roxanne Perez. It seems like Julia and Roxanne Perez are deemed to be going to the main roster at some point. Um, Maybe that doesn't happen until next month, because I would venture to guess either Jordan Grace or Julia are going to get the shot at Stephanie Vicaire. They're doing a number one contenders match, so that'll be interesting. And then the other interesting part of this whole thing is seemingly we got a budding feud with Joe Hendry and Trick Williams. And then we're going to see how they determine in a 25-man battle royal who's going to face Obafemi. But my overriding point here about NXT, there's just talent all over the place. Yeah, some of it is very green, and there's a lot of things that but there's a good cross between like experienced performers, like a Ricky Saints, who a lot of AEW people are just bitter about because he's gone to WWE, pretty much taken his old gimmick and brought it to the next level because he's got the WWE presentation. And like, if you can't see star potential in Ricky Saints, I don't know what the hell you're looking at. AEW fans are just mad that he's friends with Cody and he was never going to be loyal to AEW. So, maybe we're being a little bit too harsh that on Tony fumbled, but he kind of did fumble him because like how that man only held a tag team title that was a recognized championship and an FTW title, which didn't, I mean, all due respect to the FTW title, it was not a recognized championship. Like how you cannot do that is kind of insane to me. But yeah, and then Sol Ruka's the women's North American champion. She's got a long and prosperous career ahead of her. She can stay healthy because her style leads itself to believe that she could get hurt, and she's already had a serious knee injury. So look, I will continue to say this, that I understand the, draw to AEW in terms of like, its match quality and its emphasis on work rate and doing all the cool shit. But what NXT has been able to do under Shawn Michaels, really, since they rebranded out of NXT 2.0 and they rebranded it to now what is really just the silver and black. I mean, I can't really say that because that's the Raiders, but it's like the silver era of NXT. Guess you could call it 3.0. I don't know. But what they've done is, yes, there's obviously a heavier emphasis on the future. And this was a big problem with the black and gold NXT. Because for one, you had the issue with, Vince McMahon just, didn't really want to push a lot of the people that Triple H was pushing down in NXT because there was more of an emphasis on some of the lower level independent guys who finally got a crack at the big time in WWE. And a lot of them never were successful on the main roster. They weren't. Like the biggest noteworthy success from the old NXT, is probably the Shield. Jon Moxley's now in AEW, and Jon Moxley's had a great career. We could debate till we're blue in the face about the Death Riders, but then Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins are at the top of this thing. And then you could just go up and down some of the other, Charlotte and Becky Lynch and, Sasha Banks and Bayley were a big part of the women's division. But this evolution into this new era of NXT is why it's just, even if, it's not the most perfect television, because that these are students still. Let's call it what it is. These are still students of the game. A lot of these people in NXT, with the exception of some people who are at the top of this thing, let's use an example here, like an Ethan Page or a Ricky Saints or some of these other veteran people, Roxanne Perez. Even though she's 22 years old, Roxanne Perez has been doing this since she was a teenager, for God's sake. And then you've got obviously Julia and Stephanie Vicaire and some of the other experienced people, and Jordan Grace has been doing this for a long time. So there's experience there, but there's also a lot of green talent in terms of NIL athletes. Look at Hank and Tank. You got former football players and former athletes. Obafemi was a shot putter at Alabama. Roll Tide. I had to jump that, and I love that he low key just dropped the Roll Tide in Even if you don't like Alabama, I thought that was pretty cool. But I think, especially for me being a guy who is like a sports channel, a guy who for my career, I cover college sports. And so it's very cool to see this evolution of it. And, we can debate like, AEW and NXT in terms of star power, but as a actual cohesive product, NXT beats it by a landslide. There's a reason why it's been outrating it for weeks now. For weeks. Because there's interesting characters. There's, not a lot of ego. There's a lot of, people who are willing to learn. There's an infrastructure in there with Shawn Michaels and, Matt Bloom, the former Albert, the former Tensai. Like they've got a culture there. And then on top of it, by extension, you now have LFG with, an Undertaker made an appearance with Obafemi, which is really cool. So you've got that. And then you've got Evolve. Like the future is freaking bright in WWE. Like look at one of the greatest examples of this new-ish era of NXT. Braun Breaker is being positioned to be the future face of this industry. Let's just call it what it is. Like the positioning of him with Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins is going to vault Braun Breaker into superstardom. That's the reality of it. At some point, they're going to figure it out with Carmelo Hayes. At some point, they're going to do it. Because that guy is fucking sensational. Trick Williams is just dynamite on the microphone. He still has a little bit of work to do in the ring. He's great. Obafemi is going to be freaking special whenever he gets up to the main roster. The future has never been brighter than it has been in NXT. And that is exactly what I have been just absolutely despising about what AEW has been doing the last couple of years. They have signed every conceivable former veteran under the sun, whether it be WWE, New Japan, whoever, everybody who they have gotten their hands on, whether it be Okada, whether it be Ospreay's probably the only exception, and Ospreay's relatively young. Mercedes Moné, John Moxley was one of the first ones down there, but Adam Copeland, these names like Ricochet, and I give them credit for what they've done with Ricochet, but Ricochet still like was a lower level mid-card guy, and he's never going to be a world champion. Let's call it what it is. And they've done a great job with Swerve Strickland. But all of these people, and you go back to like the beginning of what, a lot of people got really interested in AEW is they had the four pillars. They had Darby Allin, they had Jungle Boy Jack Perry, they had Sammy Guevara, and they had MJF. Where the fuck are those guys right now? Sammy Guevara is nowhere to be found because he's a problem. Jack Perry's nowhere to be found because he's a problem. Darby Allin's climbing Mount Everest, so I guess you could say he's a problem. And MJF signed a new fat contract and doesn't give a shit. Like, it was supposed to be about the future and supposed to be about developing new stars. And pretty much since COVID, this has not been about the vision of like, establishing an alternative. It's been all about, Tony Khan being a mark and paying all of his favorite wrestlers all the amounts of money that he could just burn a hole in his burn a hole in his freaking wallet and in his jean pocket or whatever, or his suit pocket, and just pay whoever he wants, not change anything, not do anything fancy or anything like that, and just, hey, got paid $180 million for 3 years. Who gives a shit? That's why, if you guys want to know the real reason why I've been very frustrated at AEW, it's just I saw what this was in the beginning, and it was actually exciting. And now they've literally turned into everything that was wrong with WWE when Vince McMahon left. Part-timers, older wrestlers who needed another place to go and now have all the creative control and are running roughshod. Look at the fucking women's division. There's nobody left. For God's sake, Mercedes Moné is facing a very Yamashita, I think is her name, like facing a really talented Joshi wrestler. But why are we resorting to bringing over company as others' talents to just, face Toni Storm for, hey, whatever, in an eliminator match, which we know she's not going to win. This is exactly what it is. It should be about building for the future. They had a future piece in Mariah May. You want to know what Mariah May is going to do? She's going to leave. NXT is where it's at. You guys can snicker at it all you want. in terms of it. Yeah, it's not the most perfect thing, but because these people have room to grow. They aren't always in wrestling. And WWE is molding for the future in terms of professional wrestling and in terms of, sports entertainment. And there's nothing wrong with that. And when I see so many people on the internet just fucking dunk on NXT because, it's not that great, it's like, guys, it's a fun product and there's a lot of excitement and a lot of energy there. With AEW, it's energy, but it's like, it's the same shit, different week. And name me one person, one star that has gotten over there in the last 3 years. That's not the four pillars. There's been nobody in that company like Swerve Strickland. People knew who Swerve Strickland was. WWE just didn't utilize him properly, and it was a perfect storm, and they brought him in. But Swerve Strickland, people knew who he was. Name me somebody who has been a day one person in AEW that has elevated themselves because of the booking there. There's been nobody. There's nobody. Like, even in the women's, Hikaru Shida's a day one person. Longest rate. Like, Britt Baker, people knew who she was, but it's just like, it's almost like this isn't even the same company anymore. And you guys want to know why I get so pissed off and riled up on here every single week? Because I see the same shit. And it's like, the people that are in the spots that they are in, it goes completely against the message of what AEW sent us years ago. And everything that they should be doing, NXT is doing, and is doing way better. Way better. Even if it's not a perfect product, you look at somebody like an Obafemi who literally has, like, 100 some odd wrestling matches in his career. That guy's the freaking NXT champion. I mean, come on. What you guys who want to defend AEW until you're blue in the face, it's like, what are we, you have to look at this and just look at it from a business perspective and look at it from a development perspective. They're molding stars for the future in WWE and in NXT at the Performance Center. What the hell has AEW done in the last 3 years? That's my issue. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.